Alright, what is going on, guys? It's Tazz here, and welcome back to the channel. Now today what I've got for you guys is another Flash video, and before I start this video, what I want to just say is spoiler warning for the Flash Season 3 up until episode 15, or The Wrath of Savitar. So if you guys have not seen up to episode 15, I suggest clicking off the video now, going and watching the episode, and then coming back. But if you have, let's get started. So what I want to do with this video is give some of my theories and speculation as to what the identity of Savitar actually is. So in the most recent episode, we actually got a lot more Savitar in it than we have for the majority of the season, other than that mid-season finale for the Flash this season. So we got a lot of Savitar, and this is a topic that I've seen a lot of other people talk about here on YouTube, is Savitar's identity. Who is he, and why is he doing what he's doing? So yeah, that's what I want to do with this video, is just sort of give you guys my thoughts on who I think Savitar is. So without further ado, guys, let's get into the video. So, in my opinion, there are a few different options as to the identity of Savitar for who he could be, as well as he could also just be somebody that we haven't met yet, and that we will meet once the Flash unmasks him or actually figures out a little bit more of his backstory. But I feel like all of my theories have sort of the same central, the central idea is that Savitar has just sort of made up his own legend, and that a lot of the things that we've learned about Savitar previously in the season are most likely not true, and that he's sort of just made up his own legend. Like he said, he's trying to make people think that he's a god, but he probably didn't really create himself. Obviously, the Philosopher's Stone had played a part in creating the metallic Savitar that we see right now, but he was most likely not the first speedster, most likely didn't fully create himself all on his own, and sort of did a few other things to make himself out to be such a giant big bad that he most likely is gonna just get a simple explanation as to who he is and why he is the way he is. So my first theory here is that Savitar could actually be the future Flash, and I've seen this idea thrown around a lot here on different YouTube videos and things, and this seems like it's probably the least of the most probable things to actually have happen on the show. I feel like they wouldn't even go to Future Flash maybe for a while here on the show. I feel like it's almost too early in sort of the Flash's career almost to have this Future Flash come out and try to, you know, just murder the Flash right now. And I mean, if you guys don't know anything about the Future Flash is a future version of Barry Allen that comes back to sort of the present day and tries to kill the past version of himself to prevent a whole bunch of mistakes that he's made, try to actually kill a bunch of the Flash's villains. And it doesn't seem like that's Savitar's motivation. It doesn't seem like he's trying to sort of do good by doing bad, if you guys know what I mean. Is the Future Flash, he tried to kill Barry Allen himself in the past to sort of prevent bad things from happening in the future, but this just doesn't seem like what Savitar is trying to do. So I think that we can definitely rule out the possibility of Savitar being a future version of Barry Allen. And I've also seen that people have been saying that he could be, as the Future Flash, could be a future version of Wally West, and people have been saying this because, you know, he trapped Wally in the Speed Force, and, you know, he's had to trap him in the Speed Force to take his place, and who else could he have to take his place other than a past version of himself? Now, this seems like it would be actually pretty cool, but I just don't think that they'd go this route, turning Wally into a villain this way. And I mean, they did have a reverse Flash in the New 52, Daniel West, who was Iris's brother. He was actually a reverse Flash, but I just don't think that they would go this route with Wally. I think that we're gonna definitely see him back as Kid Flash after Barry gets him out of the Speed Force in the next episode, most likely. But yeah, I just don't think that I don't see Wally becoming a villain in the future and coming back and trying to kill Iris in the future. I don't see why Wally would kill his brother, or why Wally would kill his sister Iris, and I don't see why a future version of Barry would try to kill Iris either. So I just think that we could definitely rule out the possibility of Savitar being the future Flash. Even though they look very similar in design, I think we can definitely rule out this theory. But before moving on, I just wanted to bring up one last thing about the Future Flash, is that people have been saying the reason why they think this theory, why this theory has sort of gotten as much traction as it has, is because Savitar keeps saying that he is keeps saying I am the future Flash. And I mean, I think what he's saying is I am the future, comma Flash. He is addressing the Flash, saying that he is the future. And I will come back to this in a second, but and not in a second, but a little bit later on in the video. But this just sort of people have been taking it a little bit out of context. I mean, he does say it kind of fast. Sometimes he's like saying I'm the future Flash. He's not saying he literally is the future version of Barry Allen, the future version of the Flash. I mean, he possibly could be a future Flash, but I don't think he is the future Flash, if you guys know what I mean. Now, my next theory here is a theory that is most likely definitely not going to happen. I think it probably is a lot less likely to happen than Savitar being a future version of Barry or Wally, is that Savitar is actually Eddie Thawne. And now, if you guys remember back to Season 1, Eddie died. He killed himself to erase the Reverse Flash from existence to save Barry and the rest of Team Flash. And I don't think that this could happen. I mean, the reason why there's a possibility that Eddie could even come back at any point is that, if you guys remember, his body was sucked into that breach or wormhole or whatever you guys want to call it. He was sucked into that breach at the end. His body was sucked into that breach, and maybe somehow by being sucked into that breach, he almost got fused with Speed Force powers. Maybe got thrown back in time, back to where he could actually become the first person with speed, quote unquote, even though he was just thrown back in time before any speedsters ever existed, and he could have been training all up until the future where Barry actually trapped Savitar in the Speed Force, and that's why maybe he's coming back now to try to kill Barry and everything. It sounds like it would be a very, very crazy, very almost kind of confusing type of explanation to this, and I really don't think that this would happen. I think that there's a possibility that at some point maybe Eddie comes back in some form, some way, because of him being sucked into the wormhole, but I just don't think that this is a possibility. But really, the only thing that could actually give this theory some sort of traction for me is that maybe that Eddie comes back. And the reason why Savitar is trying to kill Iris is because Eddie is sort of like, okay, Barry, you took Iris from me. If I can't have her, no one can, type of thing, is maybe that's the reason why Savitar is doing it. If he is Eddie, that's the reason why he's trying to kill Iris. But again, I don't think that this is a very probable thing to have happen. I do think at some point Eddie will come back on the Flash, like he's coming back as sort of like a Speed Force ghost. I feel like maybe at some point he might come back as like in present day form, or another Earth version of him will have a more prominent role on the show. But I just don't think having Earth 1 Eddie come back as a speedster villain that was the first Flash, came from the future, got trapped in the Speed Force, it just sounds kind of convoluted, kind of crazy. I mean, the Flash is pretty crazy, but you know what I mean. I just don't think that this has a high possibility of happening. But yeah, let's move on to my next theory that I actually think could probably happen. Now, my next theory is, like I said, I would go back to that future version of the Flash type of thing, is I think that there's a possibility that maybe Savitar is a future version of the Flash that Barry had trained in the future, and he might have done something to sort of make himself out to be kind of evil, and then the way that Barry had to stop him was by trapping him in the Speed Force, and this is why Savitar kind of hates Barry now, is because maybe this future version of the Flash that we still have not met yet on the show, probably he is a completely new character that we haven't seen yet, but we will get some backstory to him probably, and that will sort of tell you why he is the way he is. And I sort of think that this has a very high possibility of actually happening, because it kind of makes sense in my mind, at least, is that maybe Savitar, like I said, is a future version of the Flash that Barry has trained, maybe after Wally has become a full-fledged version of the Flash, doesn't need any training anymore. This has happened in the future maybe, and then this new version of the Flash has sort of turned evil, and the Barry traps him in the Speed Force as a way to stop him, and then in the Speed Force he plots his revenge on Barry. He like manifests his metallic suit out of the Speed Force, because he's trapped in there for so long, and he's going to try to almost sort of like terrorize this past version of the Flash, because he's a lot more powerful than this version of the Flash. There's no way he could have defeated his version, his current timeline version of the Flash, so that's why he has to go back in time to try to defeat this version of Barry. I mean, this kind of sounds a little bit confusing, but it kind of makes a little bit of sense. Now, this is sort of my theory that I'm kind of leaning towards, kind of hoping that actually happens, but there's still a lot of people that think that Savitar is somebody that Team Flash actually knows, somebody that we've seen before on the show, and the reason they think that is that Savitar was sort of not wanting Barry to try to take off his helmet or mask or something. I mean, maybe it's just his actual head, and I mean, Savitar has become sort of one with that sort of metallic suit type of thing, so that is Savitar. He has no physical form now. That's a possibility, but sort of the reason why people think that Savitar is somebody that Team Flash knows is because of his sort of reluctance to Barry pulling off that helmet or mask. And now, while that still has some possibility, I still am leaning towards my theory that he is a future version of the Flash, a character that we have never met, a future Flash in training type of person that Barry had to sort of throw into the Speed Force after he did something evil. Now, I want to know your guys' thoughts on this down in the comments below. Tell me what you guys think of any of my theories that I've said. Do you think that any of these have an actual possibility of coming true? If you guys have your own theories, leave them down in the comments as well. But until next time, guys, it's been Tazz, and I will see you guys in the next video.